Welcome back to the Future of Real Estate. I'm Brett Ellis of the Ellis team at RE/MAX Realty Group. With us today is special guest Ken Wilkinson, Lee County Property Appraiser. Ken, welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Always great to have you on the show. I thought now would be perfect timing for two reasons. One, because you're a hard man to get, and this is when you were available. And number two, Lee County Commission just adopted their budget.
They did
last night.
I haven't really heard what they did with it, but I know that
Well,
that was their budget hearing.
The only thing I know is they cut into reserve $73 million, so they made some cutbacks and whatnot, but it's tough budget times right now, let's suffice it to say.
It's tough, not just in private lives, as we are well aware of, but in government too. They're being asked, and they need to step up.
Absolutely. And it was controversial. Did they go far enough? Did they not go far enough? And all of that. And that's for the politicians to sort out. And, you probably catch the brunt of every year, hey, why am I blah, blah, blah. But really, all you do is one thing. You set the value, you determine what the values actually were for the year.
Right. And, and I would even go so far as to say we don't actually make the market, the appraiser's office in Florida, but we do analyze what the buyers and sellers do. And they actually make the market. We record it, and then we report it. And in our county, more than the other county, we have 92 different taxing authorities that set the rate. So in this process, which is just completed for this year, we do our analysis during the year, then we notify them what the new values are in their jurisdiction, whatever the 92 different taxing authorities. Then they set a rate to apply to the new values to fund their budget. Okay,
well, while we're on the subject, every year these truth and they call them trim notices, truth and millage, and this year I was noticing it seems like it's changed a little bit, and it's actually a little bit easier to understand.
Yes, and that was the purpose. We've been working with the state. The appraiser's offices, we don't have the authority to make the form, but we have input. It's Department of Revenue through the legislative authority that they do the form. And we've been arguing for a more descriptive form to coincide with what they're called. They're called truth and millage, and I don't think we've really been getting the truth about the millage. So this year, for the first time, and I really think it's helped that at least with the public, that they get a better picture of what we're talking about.
Well, let's go through the form.
All right.
So I was working on a file yesterday, and this is one of the comparables. So it's not one I was working on, and I don't know this Melissa person. Right. We just randomly picked a property.
Sure, it's all public record.
Yeah, so this is
it's out on our website.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we're on your website right now.
Okay.
So this is a property in Matera and on Lazio Way. Now, what I want to do is, because in years past this has been very confusing, and if I've gotten a lot of calls, I know you have.
Oh, sure.
People want to know, what are my taxes going to be? I don't understand the three columns.
Okay.
So the first column here is it looks like here's what your millage rate was.
Well,
and
yes.
How much you paid per thousand last year.
The millage is actually that very first column, is last year's taxable rate.
So last year on this particular property,
right,
the taxes were $1,358
overall. Yes.
Okay, so that's what'll come up. Always column one is going to be here's what last year's was.
Correct.
But here's where the confusion starts.
Sure.
There's column 2 and column 3. So why don't you take us through?
Okay, that column 2 is what the taxes would be if they don't change the rate.
So there was a term we used to throw out there called rollback.
Yes.
And when values were going up, use the term rollback to describe what?
Okay, a rollback rate each year is the new rate to apply to the new value to raise the same revenue as the prior year. In all years, it's been a rollback rate because the values were always on the increase, except for the last 2 or 3 years, as we know, values are going down. So it's actually, I know it's confusing, but it's actually a roll-up rate. A new rate to apply to the new values to raise the same revenue as the prior year.
So if values are going down, they would have to actually increase the millage to get to the same money they had last year.
And we're talking about on an overall basis.
Right.
Each individual property is affected differently.
Well, just to give an example, last year the Lee County capital improvement was at 0.50.
It was a half a mil.
Half a mil. It turned into 0.5887.
That would be the millage to raise the same money as the prior year.
To raise the same money. But look, the fee is $28.63. If you went to 5.887, it was 14.72. That must mean you have new properties on the tax rolls.
Yes.
So that's why it could go down to raise that same money.
Yeah. If you scroll down, well, it's your show. So I was going to say, you'll see that on this particular property, although it's homesteaded, they did not have any cap build up because it was probably 5 or 6 that they bought it, so they don't have a Save Our Homes cap.
I think this is a new Matera is a condo complex. It was probably built in about 2006
and
or
you
so.
can see the values based on what they've been paying in there in the year of 2009 have gone down considerably.
I was just looking real quickly to see if there was a graph. Okay, so basically, I want to come down to that next section.
Okay.
Well, we'll jump around a little bit. Basically, what we're saying is look at the taxable value this year on this particular property.
January 1st of 2010, based on the prior 12-month market activity in those condos.
Is about 68,000, 67,900, and it was at 107.
Down from 107.
That's about a 40% drop.
That's Lee County has led the state of the 67 counties in values going down, but we also led with values going up. So it makes common sense that the fall would be the greatest here as well.
Okay, so back to column 3. Column 1. So let's look at the summary here. Last year, the tax on this property was $1,358. Keep in mind, values went down, and they've got no Save Our Homes cap, 3% cap on the way up. So okay, so this is a nice property to talk about because there's no cap stuff. This year, if the column 2, the rollback would have been $769. But because the commissioners didn't increase the rate,
they didn't go to the roll-up rate
on the ones they have authority
left
over.
Last year's rate.
Now, some of these others they don't have authority over, and they did go up.
Sure, each property is affected by 7 or 8 different millages usually on average.
So okay, so the property tax on this one is probably going to be somewhere around $716.
It won't be more than that because although, like last night, the county had their final budget hearing, they can't raise the rate over what they certified to us initially.
They could have lowered it, but they did. I don't think they did that either. Probably
no, because from my remembrance of the one of 92, they certified to us last year's rate, which will result in a decrease in the individual taxes.
So probably most likely column 3 is going to be it.
Oh yeah, it won't be more.
Right
now, when you get the actual bill, this is just another anomaly in our state. Most properties have 1 or 2 non-ad valorem assessments that aren't based on a millage in value. It's a fee. It could be a grass cutting fee, I guess, in the Cape, or there's some others that garbage fee can show up on a tax bill, but you can't put them on the trim notice because it doesn't have anything to do with ad valorem.
That's right.
Do you follow that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because I get exactly.
Right. So it doesn't mean that final number might not be higher, but it won't be higher because the rate went up from what was certified.
Okay, all right. Well, that makes sense. So if you have one of those extra services like trash and whatnot,
and then it's a fee, not a ad valorem rate.
Now you get down to this section. This is page 2, I believe.
That's the back page. That shows we were able to segregate it for the first time. The front page has to do with taxes as it relates to the rate. This page has to do with value based on the market activity the prior 12
This property is
months.
kind of interesting because last year they got a full $50,000 exemption, homestead,
right?
Because the value's at 107. This year they only got 42.9,
right? Because they dipped under a certain amount in the 60s, so you can't apply the whole.
So you get your 25.
And
plus,
the second 25 doesn't apply to the education millage.
Exactly. So
yeah, you've got to be a mathematician to put these things together. Trust me.
Absolutely.
I wasn't, but I've learned in 30 years.
Right. So this basically the taxable value last year was 42.9. This year it's going to be at 25,000 because of the exemption. So
right.
Anyway, it's kind of interesting stuff. And here's where we get into the homestead,
right?
The adopted levy is the additional homestead on this particular property.
Yeah, you'll get your 25 to all millages except for mosquito control, hyacinth, and if you lived in an unincorporated area, your fire millage doesn't apply to homestead. So you don't get a homestead break on that.
Well, tell you what, we need to take a break. You've been watching The Future of Real Estate presented by the Ellis team at RE/MAX. When we come back, we'll have more with Lee County property appraiser Ken Wilkinson, so stay tuned.